Hi guys, welcome back to StoryTube. Today we have a very special announcement to make. We're going to be doing a project of sorts, an homage, if you will, to one of the pillars of the BookTube community.
I truly am the 5-star strumpet.
If it's a success, we might continue to celebrate people that are part of this BookTube community.
Yep, this is a project for June, a TBR of sorts without really being a TBR that we want to extend to all of you guys in case you want to join. So that's why I wanted to announce it a little bit earlier so you have time to pick out some books if you want to.
We plan to do a month of Allen. So June, we've decided to read a bunch of books, or try to read a bunch of books, if we have the time, that Allen recommends to all of us here in the BookTube community. Allen is obviously a pillar of a little niche corner of the internet, and we all value his enthusiasm and his recommendations. And since he often complains that people don't read the dumb crap that he recommends, we have a list of dumb crap that we're going to try to read.
Yeah, so the idea is not to have a set TBR, but for us to grab every single book that we have in our library that we've either bought because we heard of it from Alan's channel, or that he really sold us on even if we already knew about the book. So throughout the month, what we want to do is just have the pile of books stacked on our coffee table and just pull out whichever one appeals to us the most. Some of them, I think, are shoo-ins that we know we want to read, but I'm trying to keep it as open as possible because we do have quite a stack. Alan is really good at selling us books.
Yeah, we're obviously not going to read all of these books. These are just a selection, the pool that we will select from. The purpose is basically to pay homage to Alan and make a list of the books that he really sold us on. Some of these books I bought before, but he's the one that really sold us on it, or the first person on the internet that I saw talk about a certain book. So it's both in celebration of Alan from the Library of Allenxandria, and also just an excuse to read books that we do want to read, or we were going to read eventually. We just figured this would be a fun way to go about it. And again, disclaimer, we're just not going to have the time to read all of these books, but we will try to read some of them.
Unfortunately, we have jobs.
I don't have time, Jimmy.
Without wasting any more time.
Let's get down to business.
Nice. First up is Boosh, Empire of the Vampire. No, that's a joke, that's not it. First up is actually Boosh.
Boosh.
Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. So, I have been wanting to read Senlin Ascends for a long time. Alan is a champion of the Books of Babel, and quite the champion of the last book, which is the controversial one. But anyway, his enthusiasm for Josiah Bancroft's style and humor really sold me, and I actually think this is going to work for me. I like stuff that is unusual, unconventional, and books that maybe do things a little bit differently. So this premise really does appeal to me, and this month of Allen is going to give me the excuse to finally read Senlin Ascends.
Also, just to clarify, we're going to be holding up different books, but it's not like separate TBRs. This is one pile of books. So next we have 2 Tchaikovskys. So we were both, I think, sold on Tchaikovsky very, very early on in our...
Say Boosh.
Let me start that again.
You need to say Boosh.
Okay, sorry. That can be an outtake.
You need to say Boosh.
So next up we have Boosh.
Nice.
That was the saddest boosh on the face of the planet.
Happy. 2 Tchaikovskys. I forgot to say Boosh. We were both sold on Tchaikovsky, I think, very early on of our BookTube exploration. But these are 2 that we particularly found through Alan, or bought because of Alan, or it just shot up the TBR because of Alan. This one in particular for me, I didn't really want to buy, at least not straight away, because he has so many books and I wasn't going to go all the way back to his 10-book series. But Alan really sold us on it. It sounds extremely interesting. This guy really loves his bugs, and I'm curious if he can make me tolerate them. And Guns of the Dawn is just one that has a really, really appealing premise. I've heard it described as, you know, Jane Austen meets fantasy and war, and that just sounds extremely fun. So
I think for me, Tchaikovsky, I had read Children of Time and Dogs of War before all of this. I hadn't really considered trying Tchaikovsky's fantasy, and Alan, I think, was the only channel that had really covered or discussed Shadows of the Apt that I could see. There was also Dom from Dominish Books, little shout out to him too. They both seem to have been the longest champions of Tchaikovsky's fantasy, in particular Shadows of the Apt. So I think both of them then convinced me to dabble into his fantasy.
I think Guns of the Dawn actually might have been one of the earlier videos of Alan's that we found. Like, did we found his channel through like you searching for Guns of the Dawn reviews?
Possibly, yeah.
I think we might have. It was around that time anyway. So it had to go on the list.
Next up is Boosh.
Boosh.
Guards by Terry Pratchett. So I talked a little bit about this in my fantasy chronology project. If you want to watch that, go watch it. This one will also kill two birds with one stone, I guess, because it will be part of that project too. I want to read the classics of fantasy. Alan has really sold me on Terry Pratchett in terms of the humor and the whimsy. Like I said before, I'm a bit of a whimsical fella. So Terry Pratchett is really high on my list. Obviously, some of these we're not going to be getting to, but this is one I'd kind of like to prioritize. And because he also mentions it quite often on Book Jeopardy, or it's also an answer on Book Jeopardy quite often, it sticks in my brain. Every time I think of it, I think of Jeopardy, which is, by the way, the best thing on YouTube.
Next up, Boosh.
Boosh.
A big one. Daniel Abraham. So here we have Long Price Quartet, but we also own Age of Ash and the first couple of books in The Dagger and the Coin. So didn't want to hold up all of them because I don't have enough hands, but they're all going to be on the pile. This one, though, is one that I'm definitely going to be prioritizing. This will be my first read of June.
Yeah.
I've locked that in. The Long Price Quartet, everything I hear about it sounds exactly like my cup of tea. Slow burn, political intrigue with amazing, mind-blowing payoff. Low to no action. People call it boring. Sign me up. Sounds exactly like my cup of tea. So I cannot wait to get to this one. I haven't decided if I'll binge the whole series in June. Possibly. They're short, but at least I'll probably read this first volume with the first two books.
Cool. I guess as well, if you're reading Long Price Quartet, I might pick up Age of Ash, because I do want to read Abraham in the month of Alan.
We have to.
Yeah. So Abraham, I think, will be prioritized. If you're reading that first, I might pick up another one, or I'll stick to one of the other ones that I'll prioritize and read that afterwards. Next up is Boosh.
Boosh.
Augustus by John Williams. So I recently took part in the Cicero trilogy read-along, which reignited my love for Roman history, which I hadn't really explored since school. And I took the opportunity to join that read-along because I had the Cicero trilogy for quite a while. And then when Alan announced his read-along, I was like, yay, I have an excuse to read this big chunker. So I have the bind-up of that book, of all three in one. And I really enjoyed it. Natural next step for me was Augustus, who you get a little bit of at the end in book 3 in Cicero. So I feel like this is a very obvious one to put on the list. It's John Williams. Seems to be popular amongst our little sphere in the last 6 months or so. So Augustus will be high on the list.
It's also the only non-fantasy book on the list,
Yeah.
so I think it's quite likely to get read by one of us at least,
Yeah.
if we want a little fantasy break.
Yeah, if not, I'm going to get burnt out with fantasy, to be honest.
Next up, Boosh.
Boosh.
The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is also one that I'm actually not sure, I don't remember if it was on our radar or not, but definitely Alan's conversations with the author on his channel were what really sold us, and his review on getting this pretty much day one. and also the sequel, even though we hadn't read this one yet. This title really appeals to my soul. So maybe I'll get to it. I haven't really decided anything past Long Price Quartet of what I will prioritize, but this is pretty high on the list, especially because the sequel is already out. So like the end of the trilogy is in sight. That's kind of how I like to plan my reading. And it's not super thick. This is going to be the month of the short book.
Aha. Next up is Boosh.
Boosh.
Knight's Shadow by Sebastian de Castell. Now that I am holding this, I remember the first video that I discovered Alan with, and it was his review of Traitor's Blade. Yeah, so I read Traitor's Blade, was it last year or the year before?
Last year.
Okay. I read Traitor's Blade last year. I had watched his review of that probably a couple of years ago now at this stage, but I need to finish this series. Like I also said in my fantasy project video, I start a lot of book ones and I crave variety, so I don't finish the series, and then I'm like, I know I like this. This is good. I'll get to it because I need to try this other thing. So guys, please push me to finish the series that I start, and I might use the month of Alan as an excuse to keep going with Greatcoats. So, Knight's Shadow by Sebastian de Castell.
I will help push you because I actually read Traitor's Blade and Knight's Shadow in January, and I was fully planning to binge the quartet, but we didn't own Saint's Blood, which is the third one at the time, so I couldn't go straight into it. It took like 3 weeks to arrive when I ordered it.
It took a long time to arrive.
Yeah, and by that time I had moved on to something else and I haven't squeezed it in since, so I might also use that as an excuse to either continue or finish the series. But I also feel like it's kind of cheating because I'm going to continue that series anyway. It's not like a new thing. But yeah.
Also, outside of fantasy, I'm a big fan of swashbuckling, and I'm a big fan of Pirates of the Caribbean. I like the Three Musketeers, so this one really ticks all my boxes. Also, the humor in it, the sarcasm, the banter between the three. Knight's Shadow, Sebastian de Castell.
All right, my last one is a bit of an honorable mention because it was on my radar before and I was going to buy it, but I think Alan's review, or I don't remember if it was a review or just mentioning it in a wrap-up video, was what really accelerated the process of me buying it. So Daenerys at the end of A Game of Thrones, perhaps. Boosh.
Boosh.
Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. This is also the first in a trilogy. We're going to be starting a lot of series in June, which is stressful to me.
That's what I do. I'll guide you through it.
Thank you. But yeah, this is one that I might throw in as a palate cleanser because even though it's also fantasy, this is YA fantasy, I'm expecting it to be a little bit of a quicker read, which might, help me pick it up. But it really appeals to me. The other channel that sold me on this was Piera, so it was on my radar from her, but this has dragons and it has revolution and oppressive regimes, I think, and I love all of those things, so give me it.
Similar to Alan, you like your revolution and justice.
Yeah, I do.
And fairness.
Yeah.
Next up, and I don't have a physical copy, but it is Boosh.
Boosh.
KJ Parker, The Folding Knife. So KJ Parker is obviously one of Alan's favorite authors, and I would very much like to try KJ Parker. I think maybe The Company or The Folding Knife, I'm not sure, but The Folding Knife appeals to me just for the Roman vibes or the Roman inspiration behind it. And KJ Parker has a lot of books, so if I like it, there's a lot of KJ Parker to get to. Watch us not read any of these books and read 3 KJ Parker novellas instead. And last up, a little addition to the list is a book that I had purchased myself a long time ago, and then I found that Alan read it much later, so it's going to give me the prompt to pick it up, and it is Boosh.
Boosh.
Blackwing by Ed MacDonald. I'm a big fan of grimdark, and I have picked up a bunch of niche grimdark books over the last couple of years now. I've read a bunch, and Blackwing is one that I haven't got to. It looks like a very quick read, so it might be one that I could tag on as an addendum to the end of the month of Allen.
So this started as really an excuse for us to delve into all of the recommendations that we have gotten from Alan, because he's extremely good at selling us on things. His enthusiasm is really infectious, and a lot of the stuff that we've bought based on his recommendations is extremely interesting and really appealing. So this is really an excuse to delve into all of that, and we've been planning it for more than 6 months at this stage.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of obscure, boring crap.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to get to all of these books. And this was just a nice way to also celebrate a pillar of the community. And if we have fun with it, we might, do more of these for other booktubers that we enjoy watching and listening to and gathering recommendations from.
Yep. We might do a month of Jimmy and read Cormac McCarthy's entire back catalogue.
Yeah. Read a bunch of books about death. Baker. We should do Baker.
There is a head on a pole behind you.
So we would love for everybody to join in on this adventure with us. We want you to read the books along with us if you want. We would love if you commented down below if you think we missed any books that Alan loves. Alan, yourself, please, if you watch this, comment below and let us know which ones you'd want us to prioritize. And subscribe, like, comment. Do all of the things on YouTube that YouTube people tell you to do, because this is fun, isn't it? It's fun.
It's fun.
We're having fun.
We're having fun.
I don't have time, Jimmy. Sack of wine.